Good morning. I read a story about a composer who wrote a symphony, and as part of that symphony, he included, if the proper term is movement, a whole movement of pure silence. And he said that silence is one of the most beautiful things. And the audience afterwards said how moving. And it was a space in which they actually became part of the symphony for your thoughts or your quiet meditations are part of the beauty. So this morning, I'm going to be telling very short, brief, little stories, almost word pictures. And we're going to take a few seconds of silence in between each one so that you become part of the sermon. E. Cummings wrote, "We do not believe in ourselves until someone reveals that deep inside us something is valuable, worth listening to, worthy of our trust, sacred to our touch. Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit." Early morning mist hanging in the hollows, threading through the trees. This autumn, the colors of the leaves have been muted, as if an artist took a brown wash and with broad strokes painted the landscape so the colors are darker, more smoky than vibrant. I drove down a country lane, a windy road, and I topped a small hill, startling a rafter of wild turkeys. They exploded into flight, and I came to a halt as they swirled around me, 40 of them at least. Their great wings unfolded, a band of color close to the wingtips, gorgeous and graceful. They flowed across and around my car, flying to land on the road on large, round bales of hay in front of a faded red barn. What a gift. He stood there waiting, as he did every school morning, wearing a long-sleeve sweater and a cotton shirt buttoned up to the neck, as little boys often did back then. He was tall for his 5 years, and he had a trick of lowering his chin, looking at me bashfully, with long eyelashes shading his green eyes. His hair was almost an indescribable color, soft, velvety apricot, with deeper mahogany grooves, where his mother had parted his hair with a damp comb, leaving neat rows that dried stiff. When the sunlight lit up his hair, it reminded me of burning embers. He had a dusting of little tiny freckles on the ridge of his nose. He was rather solemn, and I loved making him laugh, because I have always thought that laughter is as necessary as breath. Our kindergarten class had 2 tricycles. One was silver, and one was red. And every morning, he was waiting for me to arrive, and he had a tricycle saved for me. He would stand behind me as I pedaled, and sometimes he would push. And I would put my little red leather shoes safely out of the way of the rotating pedals, and we would fly around the playground. Then the bell would ring, and it would be time for school to start. There are many kinds of love, and this was innocent friendship, best buddies. It was so long ago, and yet I remember his kindness 45 years later. Random kindness can mean the world to someone. I don't remember any other child in that class, but I don't think I will ever forget him. A few weeks ago, I was invited to join a secret group on Facebook, which is the women from my former church. I was shocked, but they asked me to join the group because these are all women who have been told that their stillborn child or the child that they miscarried will not be in heaven because it did not take its first breath. It's not considered to have a soul. And these women formed a group to grieve together, to remember their children. And I wrote them a story in the words that they could understand and that they would be comfortable with. To the little one lost too soon, a love story. You were so little, so delicate, so not ready for this harsh world. You nestled there, near my heart, and I waited with anticipation and longing to meet you. I wondered, will I be a good mother? Will I have patience, strength, and wisdom to teach you to be strong? I would sometimes sit, my hand on my tummy, wondering if you would have your grandmother's beautiful voice, if you would have thick eyelashes like your father, if your nose would, heaven forbid, be shaped like your grandfather's. I would imagine you wrapped in the blankets I had such fun buying. They are packed away now in the attic, the clothes carefully folded and wrapped in tissue, for you don't need those. I won't ever see your eyes shining up at me. I won't hear your giggles. I won't see the first smile. I have to imagine those as I hold your memory dear. Some people wonder why I grieve, why I will carry my love for you the whole rest of my life. But that's a secret that we share, for it only took a few short weeks before you had captured my heart. I will grieve and cry and mourn, and sometimes I will smile with fond imaginings of you calling me Mommy. Sometimes I will wonder what you will look like when I see you again. For with every fiber of my being, I know I will, and I will wait for that my entire life. Thank you for letting me love you. It was too short. It was not enough. It was fleeting and ephemeral and sweet and tender. My heart will never be the same, and that is just fine. Come walk with me in the early morning mist. Take the path near the lake and watch the soft sunlight glimmer on the water. See the osprey perched on the water-darkened rocks, the minnows darting, the ripple of a fish in the distance. Wander with me in the dew-wet grass, where the 3 small arched wooden bridges cross to rough wooden docks. Boats rock and gently strain against their moorings. I walk those quaint bridges, the air cool and fresh, with hints of autumn in the breeze. In the distance, a flock of geese begin honking, and the sound echoes across the lake, making me pensive. Some say the sounds and sights of autumn remind us of our mortality. For me, the geese, as they gather to migrate, always brings a wistful sadness. I don't know why. Down in the grass at the foot of the dock is a stand of tall lilies, beautiful and majestic. I want to gather a bouquet to take home, but I leave them peacefully to grow until the frost takes them. They will be back next spring. I notice a trail of ants crossing busily on a vastly important errand of some sort. I hear the cheerful chirping of some bird I cannot see. The tips of my boots are dark with the dew from the grass, not yet dried by the sun. You may say, what happened? Nothing happened. Everything happened. Life happened. When she was little, she loved putting her tiny feet into my dress shoes and thumping around the house, a string of 2 long pearls reaching the hem of her dress, her blonde curls bouncing. I remember her laughter, the way she admired herself in the mirror. I look just like you, Mommy, she said with pride. She was always a hugger, needing cuddle time, needing to be right in the middle of the family. She wanted to always live at home, promising she would never leave me. I would smile, knowing, as she could not, that someday she would feel differently. The years flew by, and that little girl grew into the shoes. Her pudgy cheeks turned into the beautiful high cheekbones of a young woman. Today, I watched her try on a wedding dress. She came out of the dressing room and laughed because the dress was several sizes too big, hanging on her slim frame. And I got a lump in my throat. Memories going back to that little girl who loved to try on my dresses, loved the way the dress dragged on the ground, who wore lace doilies as a veil. Where does the time go? How can we treasure the moments that pass too quickly, no matter how much we try to enjoy them? All I know is to cherish every phase that she goes through, to be thankful for the gifts of her time and her love, to treasure her kindness, to share in her happiness in this stage of her life. You mothers know what I mean. A daughter is a gift. Early morning mist hung over the green silk water, the wind making ruffles on the shining surface. Spring green leaves turned the water their own color, and in the distance, the silk surface changed to olive green in the coves and under docks. We were barely gliding, following a long-necked osprey as it flew and landed and watched us carefully in return. Its wings opened gracefully like a Chinese fan as it effortlessly rode the wind currents. Clouds were drifting across the sky, making shadows on the lake. The air was cool, and I snuggled under a sun-warmed beach towel, soft and comforting. An old rough dock caught my eye, and a young father teaching his little son to fish. They sat side by side, each with a rod in the water, waiting patiently. Suddenly, the little boy turned to his father and kissed him on the lips the way little boys do. They sat there, grinning at each other, and a shaft of sunlight on cue lit them up like a Norman Rockwell painting. We glided silently by, and the osprey watched us all. She thought I didn't see her, but I did. Amidst the flurry of activity, I saw it. It was quietly done, on an impulse, and it stabbed me to the heart. She thought she was unobserved. Her actions covered by the wrapping paper fight, which is traditional with us on Christmas Day, and the noisy bustle of all 7 of us tearing into gifts at once. She opened a gift, and she saw her sister's eyes light up at something that her sister had wanted for a long time. She pressed it quietly into her sister's hands with a smile. And I got misty-eyed as I furtively watched. The opening of the gifts continued all around us, with giggles and hugs and laughter. She still doesn't know that I saw her, but I'm so glad that I did. They caught my eye at a garage sale, forlornly jumbled in a basket with pot holders and scraps. 3 little leather pocket prayer books, so well used they were fragile and soft. Gold leaves and vines were embossed on the covers. The inscription inside said, "To Harold, on this Christmas Day, from your dearest mother, 12/25/1908. Tucked inside were mementos, love notes from his wife Gladys, notes of appreciation from students to him, their professor, and an order of service from his mother's funeral. I bought them for $1. And I wonder who he is and what he was like. I ponder that these little books have more physical permanence than a human being who owned them. I went to another garage sale, and I spent quite a bit of time talking with a man who was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and his wife who was selling things from her late mother's house. They seemed to both need someone to talk to. And they told me about their Black Baptist church, which sounded wonderful for them. The woman asked me after a while, she said, "Are you someone special, like a school teacher?" And I said, "No, but," I said, "I am a lay preacher." And she said, "Oh, I knew it." She said, "It just shines all around you." And she said, "What do you preach?" And I decided to go for it. I said, "I believe in the love of God so deep and so wide that it has room for everyone on this planet. I believe in a caring God accessible to every human heart. I believe in a presence of the holy so sweet that it will come to complete strangers to comfort the sick and the hurting, to surround a daughter grieving for her mother." And at this point, they were both in tears, and we had a little church time right in that damp basement. She hugged me, and I hugged her and her tall husband for good measure. We laughed and we cried, and the sound of glory was exclaimed quite a few times by them. I imagine their church is a warm place to be. A 27-year-old memory. My elderly father in an overcoat, a hat with a feather in the brim, his sight-impaired cane in one hand. My mother in a soft lavender coat and a flowered scarf tied under her chin, sitting on a park bench, holding hands. I don't know why that memory popped into my head this morning, but it felt like a gift. My oldest daughter moved out of state last week, and it made me sadder than I expected. She's the first to leave. This will also be the first Christmas that my daughters and I will not be going to Disney World in many years. Going to Disney together became a tradition after we lost my family, and we were alone at Christmas. My daughters always had Christmas break from high school and college, and we were big babies about the lights and the decorations, the carols on Main Street, the hot chocolate and sugar cookies, the snow made from tiny soap bubbles, spectacular fireworks, the parades, the characters, the rides and shows. After decades of having to go without Christmas, Disney felt like being totally immersed in it. The first few years, when the girls woke on Christmas morning, I had their stockings hanging on the hotel dresser. It was marvelous fun, and our one vacation that we looked forward to all year. Now my daughters have full-time jobs, no vacation time, and 3 wonderful men they don't want to leave. And this year, we will stay home. A certain time in the life of our family seems to have passed. And as I was thinking on this a bit sadly, Christmas music was playing over the intercom of the grocery store where I was shopping. I looked on the bottom shelf for a product and realized that the last one was way in the back, and I kneeled in the aisle to reach it. Just then I heard a jingling sound behind me like metal bells, and I half turned to see what was causing it. And since I was kneeling, perhaps the sight at eye level hit me harder than it might have. But a little girl was walking with the aid of 2 crutches. Her heavy shoes had metal braces up to her knee, which jingled when she walked like Christmas bells. I looked upwards to her face, and she was grinning like a little cat. Her mother walked beside her with a shopping basket over one arm. They were chattering away, enjoying their time together. I turned quickly back to the shelves, my eyes overflowing, and silly me, I kneeled there using the cuff of my sweater to wipe my eyes. If they noticed me at all, they probably wondered what the weird woman on her knees was doing. The disabled person in that store was me, because I had lost sight of all the things that I have to be grateful for, and the simple truth that lots of people never get to go to Disney World. Life changes, and we have to change with it. But joy can be found if we look hard enough. A mother has to watch her children go through many stages, and this change will become familiar in time. All will be well. Love continues across states, and even when I share my daughters with our growing family. Gratitude is not in thinking about the things that you don't have. It is in cherishing the gifts that you do. The magic of Christmas can be found everywhere if you pay attention. I Am a Little Church by E. E. Cummings. I am a little church, no great cathedral, far from the splendor and squalor of hurrying cities. I do not worry if briefer days grow briefest. I'm not sorry when sun and rain make April. My life is the life of the reaper and the sower. My prayers are the prayers of earth's own clumsily striving, finding and losing and laughing and crying children, whose any sadness or joy is my grief or gladness. Around me surges a miracle of unceasing birth and glory and death and resurrection. Over my sleeping self float flaming symbols of hope, and I wake to a perfect patience of mountains. I am a little church, far from the frantic world with its rapture and anguish, at peace with nature. I do not worry if longer nights grow longest. I am not sorry when silence becomes singing. Amen.